Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Canadian Football Central, CFL content for the fans, by the fans. And we have our Week 7 preview coming right up. We got 4 games. This time, we're going to have 2 games on the Friday, 1 game on the Saturday, 1 game on the Sunday. Lots of good football coming up. Make sure you guys like the video, share it around, and subscribe. Hit the little notification bell if you can. Helps out the channel a ton. Now, I do want to start out with a little bit of an announcement, which is that on Friday, the Winnipeg-Saskatchewan game, we will be live streaming that, so make sure you guys tune in for that. However, the Edmonton-Ottawa game, we might be live streaming. I say might because the very next day, I'm going to be driving like 8 hours to Thunder Bay, Ontario. I'm going to be having to pack a lot of stuff, this and that, so it really depends on how much of that I get done in advance. I might have the time to live stream the Edmonton-Ottawa game on Friday. I might not. So that's something that...
Worst case scenario might be, as they say on TV, join in progress.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. It might happen. It might not. If it does, you'll see it on our Instagram. We'll have it on our Twitter. So if you guys follow that, you guys will probably see all of that stuff. Now, one other announcement I do want to make is that I want to thank you. That's right, you, the viewer, because we hit 1.5K subscribers, 1,500 subscribers.
Dun, 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 dun.
Thank you guys so much. It's funny, we actually hit it a few days ago, but it's been kind of fluctuating at 1.5 and slightly under. But we're about 2 subs above, so I feel safe enough to now kind of announce it. And again, I just want to thank you guys for your wonderful support. All right, so getting right into the week, we got our first game, which will be Friday at 6 p.m. Central. This will be 7 p.m. Eastern out there in Toronto and Hamilton and whatnot. This will be the Edmonton Elks versus the Ottawa Redblacks. Repeat of last week, this time out in Ottawa. Rick, how are we feeling for this one?
Let's rephrase that. The new and changed Edmonton Elks.
Yes, will be the first Elks game in quite a while without Mr. Chris Jones as the coach.
So you also have
Jarius Jackson now, who's the head coach, right?
So you also have former CFL defensive lineman Alondo Sewell as their new defensive line coach too.
Yes, sir. So I will say, besides kind of the coaching changes for Edmonton, how are we feeling about this? As one of the things that kind of was a factor, at least in my pick last week for Ottawa, was the fact that it seemed like Drew Brown might not be ready. Because you have to remember, we do our picks a few days in advance. We do not know all the depth charts that come out just necessarily the day prior, because we have to have this video out for a bit so that way you wonderful people can see it. What is the injury situation between these two?
So interesting notes.
Yep.
So I don't know if you know this, but our little friend AJ Allen a couple of interviews ago mentioned that players can come off. Well, players on the 6th game can practice early.
Yep.
Do you know who from Ottawa has started to practice?
Does his name rhyme?
Start with J, and it ends with an M.
What did you say?
Or his first name starts with a J, and his last name starts with an M.
Does it rhyme with Terramaya Gazzoli?
It does. It does go to Gazzoli.
I made that up, by the way. Mr.
Jeremiah
Mazzoli
is listed as limited. Devontae Dedman with a hip injury is limited. Braylon Addison is full.
Yep.
Lonzo Molden IV is full with rib injury. Let's see here. Frankie Griffin is limited.
Yep.
Brandon Dangridge, who was their kind of their backup returner.
Yep.
He is limited with a knee injury.
Ooh.
On the flip side, really no one that really stands out for me anyways.
It's funny. In my opinion, this coaching change for Edmonton is good. And you can, if you want to know kind of our full opinions on the coaching change, we have a full video out covering Chris Jones getting fired and exactly what we think, and about how Luke Skywalker has finally blown up the Death Star that is the Chris Jones Edmonton.
And Carter's lovely rumor of him coming to Hamilton to replace Mark Washington.
It's funny. You sent me a thing of like, oh, he might be coming to Winnipeg. I'm like, no, don't even entertain that stupidity. No, don't even entertain that stupidity. No.
You know what that kind of reminds me of? Did you ever watch the TV show The Office?
Yep.
Okay, what is that? Where the guy's like, no, for the love of God, no. I forget.
Oh, Michael Scott.
Yeah.
Oh God! No. Oh God! Please no! Like, yeah, I've heard that.
But now the question to you is:
yeah,
with the coaching change, do they get to victory, or does Edmonton continue climbing the ladder, or Ottawa? Sorry.
Do you want to know my honest opinion? I think the coaching change really changes things in Edmonton. Not in 1 week. Here's the problem, is that for the new coaches to have enough time to really make an impact on this team, in my opinion, 1 week just isn't enough time. And because you started the season with Chris Jones, there's going to be certain things that you can't get rid of even this season. And so I think that Edmonton, I think that they'll play a good game, but I don't see. When it comes to the Elks, I think we need a little bit longer with these coaches before we necessarily start seeing those results.
Okay, now are you talking about that overall or defense or what? Because
I'm talking really overall. Because now one thing I will say is that the offense actually was pretty decent. It was Edmonton's defense that just was not able to get it done. Even with Sean Oakman back there, they just consistently were giving up way too many points to Ottawa, as they given up like a touchdown or more in 3 consecutive quarters in the second, third, and fourth. And it was not looking good. I mean, if you're talking about Drew Brown, even, you gave up almost 500 passing yards to this guy, which is just absolutely ridiculous. You had 3 receivers on Ottawa that were over 100 yards receiving. And as I can't remember the name of the guy, one of our wonderful viewers rightly pointed out, was that as much as Ottawa offensively did good last game, they definitely looked a lot better because of the lack of defensive play coming from this Edmonton Elks squad. And he was 100% right on that. So credit to him. Actually, let me see if I can find the actual comment and give credit. Rick, please continue there. I just want to
so here's my theory is, does Drew Brown come back and have the same game that he had last week? Do we see the same what is it? Let me pull it up here.
Yes, the comment that was correct about it was Mr. Yeet -PN8WG. He said, I like Drew Brown, but Ottawa's offense isn't that good. I think Edmonton played horribly defensively, and Boris Beattie managed to somehow be even worse. That's exactly correct. Bang on. So credit to you, man. That was, yeah.
So you're saying that Drew Brown will not throw an almost 500 game?
I don't think he throws almost 500, but I don't think he needs to. That's the thing, is that I don't think realistically he needs to throw that much to get a win against Edmonton. And I don't see the evidence that, like, there's a coaching change, but coaching changes take time to take effect. I mean, it was one of those things where, like, if we talk about like when Tommy Condell was fired from the Hamilton Tiger Cats, you guys were stuck with that playbook for the rest of the year, even though it was one of those things where, like, you wanted to move on. There are certain things that are not able to be changed mid-season right away. And I think, because I think Edmonton, I don't think they'll be able to get it done this week. Would they get it done the following week against Hamilton? Maybe.
No, they will not. They will not get it done the following week.
Both teams are winless. I'm sorry. It's just who knows. But then after that, they play Saskatchewan, and it really depends on where Saskatchewan is. as right now Saskatchewan looks pretty darn good. I will say Edmonton Elks are really not fortunate in the sense of they could really use a bye week. In the sense of that this is when you have a coaching change, a bye week is a perfect time to finally be able to implement those changes and have ample time to do so. And I just don't think a week is big enough turnaround time.
I mean, if you think about it, the offensive playbook is still the same because, what is it? The Jarius Jackson's still calling the offensive plays, so that doesn't change. Defensive coordinator's still there. That doesn't change. The only thing that really changes is the final say.
Yep. And that's the thing. I think as much as I think Jarius Jackson will be a good voice for the Edmonton Elks, I think his team needs to get used to him. I'll put it this way. I remember when I was playing hockey and I was playing AAA, and our coach was essentially removed. I'm not going to disclose why he was removed, but he was essentially removed. And so then the assistant coaches then assumed the role of the head coach. And we lost a lot of games after that, even though, it was something that kind of needed to happen. Because it took time for us to really kind of gel with that new coaching system. Even though the breakout was the same, even though the offensive zone pressure was the same, even though the power play was the same, all that sort of stuff. I'm just kind of making a comparison to hockey here. We weren't really able to connect on that right away. And I think it just takes time. And so that's kind of what I think will happen with Edmonton here. My prediction is that the Ottawa Redblacks will defeat the Edmonton Elks for the second straight week.
Okay, but the ultimate question is this game going to be close, or do you think this will be far?
I think it'll still be close.
From between.
I think it'll still be close.
Under a touchdown?
Yes. Not necessarily it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly 3 points like a field goal. But
I'm just saying.
I think it'll be under a touchdown. And I think Milt Stegall talking about that you're not improving, you're finding new ways to lose. Well, it might just reign true again here for Edmonton, but I think Edmonton needs to show a bit more in order for me to really get behind them.
Wouldn't that be funny if Edmonton lost by 1?
It would be something. That's
because, like you said, they always have to find ways to lose.
That's certainly
every game.
So,
I'm looking at.
So, Rick, who are you taking?
Before I give my predictions,
Cat,
just take this in.
Mm-hmm.
Week 2, they lost to Montreal by 3.
Mm-hmm.
Week 3, they lost to Toronto by 3. Week 4, they lost by 3. Week 5, they're on a bye week. Last week, they won by 3.
What do you mean they lost by 3?
Every game, except for week 1,
they've lost
by 3 points. Exactly a field goal.
Oh, my goodness.
But to answer your question, I am picking Ottawa to win because I am not letting Edmonton get a win before us.
So you got a bit of heart behind that pick. Fair enough.
Yes.
And I'll certainly probably have some heart behind this next pick, which is why we're going to get into the Winnipeg-Saskatchewan game. This will be the first meeting between two teams that we're talking about, one of the biggest rivalries in the CFL, Winnipeg and Saskatchewan. This will be at Mosaic Stadium. There'll be 2 games between Winnipeg and Saskatchewan at Mosaic Stadium, with this game here on the Friday, July 19th, as well as then the Labor Day Classic later in the year, followed by the Banjo Bowl the following week, obviously. Now, Winnipeg is coming off a pretty big game in terms of what a crazy game to watch, and a game that they desperately needed as Zach Collaros returns from injury and throws 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So he had not thrown any touchdowns. He had only thrown picks up until this point. So was a big improvement, even though Bomber fans would hope for a bit of a better result there. 344 yards, though, for Zach Collaros. You go 27 for 36, an average of 9.6 yards for each throw that he got. So definitely a big improvement for Zach Collaros. Brady Oliveira was able to go over 100 yards rushing again. The offensive line has continued its better play since the week prior. And then Ontario Wilson with a complete breakout game, 201 yards receiving, 1 touchdown, 13 receptions, second most in a game in Bomber history. And it was just overall just a big game for Winnipeg. Nick Dembski had a good game with a touchdown, and then following that up with the 2-point conversion. However, we do have to look at the other side of things for Saskatchewan, as Trevor Harris is still out. Is that correct?
Trevor Harris is still out.
Okay.
However, according to the report that came out today, that Trevor Harris is close, but there is some news out of Saskatchewan that I mentioned to you earlier.
Can you repeat that again? Because I can't remember.
Your young friend Yoshi has suffered a knee injury, which could possibly require surgery, and now he could possibly be out, like Philip Blake, for either a good portion of the season or the rest of the regular season.
This sucks. I love Yoshi Hardrick, and even though he's not playing on my glorious Bombers anymore, him over in Saskatchewan, it breaks my heart to see that that's happening. So I hope whatever injury it is, it's not as severe as they think it is. And
they just have it listed down as a knee injury, but they say quad.
So I'm hoping that whatever it is, it doesn't keep him out the whole season. I'd love to see him play, and it really, really sucks that he is going out. So I hope nothing but the best for Yoshi Hardrick. Trevor Harris being out is something. Shea Patterson is going to have to continue here, and so I'm curious to see how well Shea Patterson does against the Bombers defense. And now that the Bombers defense has played a little bit better, although I will say, put 37 points that they'd given up to Calgary last week. Calgary was still able to push a lot more than I think us Bomber fans would like. However, I'm curious to see how guys like Evan Holm, how guys like Tara Ford, Diedrich Nichols are able to combat Shea Patterson in the passing game. Emelis and Schaefer Baker had good games last week, and I expect especially Schaefer Baker to really probably take the reins in terms of top receiving yards for Saskatchewan this week. The last time Winnipeg and Saskatchewan had played at home, Schaefer Baker had a really, really great game when they won the Labor Day Classic last year in overtime against Winnipeg. That's the one thing that's a lot of fun between these two teams, is that despite no matter where they are in the standings, for the vast majority of the time, not every time, but the vast majority of the time, they're able to have a really, really close, really competitive game, despite the standings in seasons where Winnipeg has done very, very bad and Saskatchewan's done very well, and seasons where Winnipeg was on top and Saskatchewan was kind of struggling a little bit. It's always been a big battle over there in Mosaic Stadium, and I expect Saskatchewan to really bring their A game. Now, one thing that I think Saskatchewan definitely wants to get going is the running game. AJ Ouellette was very, very effective for the Toronto Argonauts last year against Winnipeg, against that Winnipeg defense. There has been some questions towards this D-line this year for Winnipeg with just the injuries on it. Guys like Jake Thomas and Willie Jefferson will pose a threat, but past that, I'm curious to see how much the Saskatchewan Roughriders offensive line is able to really get the running blocks going up to give some room for AJ Ouellette to be kind of the dagger in the Bomber side. So I think this will be a really close game. Rick, what do you think?
So my question to you is, with how well Saskatchewan's defense has been,
they've been very damn good.
Do you think Wilson, obviously Wilson's not going to hit 200 yards, but do you think Wilson is going to have another big game or no?
I think he will. I don't think he hits 200. I think he can hit 100. It's one of those things where if you look at it's become very, very clear if you look at last game that when Zach Collaros gets comfortable with the receiver, he really likes throwing to him a lot. And as much as it's one of those things where it may make an offense predictable, it has worked for Winnipeg. I mean, it's one of those things where when Dalton Schoen was a breakout star in this league, he was going to Dalton Schoen constantly throughout the season. It was an extremely predictable play, but yet it still worked. And Dalton Schoen was arguably the best receiver in the entire CFL that year. And so it's one of those things where now that he's really got into his mojo with Ontario, well, and he'll throw to Ontario Wilson a lot because I mean he threw to him 13 effing times last game. So I think if you're Saskatchewan, making sure you have that good zone or man defense, whatever you want to run, that's going to shut down Ontario Wilson is definitely a key factor. Also, not letting Winnipeg get into field goal range is going to be key, as Sergio Castillo in his last 15 kicks has missed one of them. And it was a 54-yarder. So it was a long one. He had hit a 57. He had hit two 52s. He had hit a 53-yarder. He had hit a 57. And he hit it 60. Like, Sergio Castillo has been absolutely money for Winnipeg. So if you're Saskatchewan, utilizing that really, really good defense to his fullest and keeping Winnipeg at a field goal range and forcing Sheehan to be punting all game is definitely something you're going to look for. I think one thing that Winnipeg will need to be careful of is a guy like Mario Alford, being careful about his return game, making sure you have really good downfield coverage on special teams will be really key for the Bombers in terms of not letting Saskatchewan kind of get a good head start on every drive that they have by allowing those good returns. But overall, I think that Saskatchewan's goal is going to be to get the running game going where they haven't been able to, and for the defense to continue the way as is. For Winnipeg, it's going to be putting a dent in what has been an excellent Saskatchewan defense. Calero's staying consistent and just being able to at least shut down the receiving game and keeping the running game for Saskatchewan at a minimum. As if you're giving up too many passes for Sean Bain Jr., whether you're giving up too many for Emelis or Schaefer Baker, or maybe Stearns has another good game, it's going to be it's going to be a tough game both ways. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it. Is there anything else that you got there, Rick?
Nope.
My prediction for this game is that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers will get closer to getting back to 500, and I believe they will have a very, very close win over Saskatchewan. My prediction is that this game could even go to overtime. I think it will be that close. I think we are looking at the closest game of the week.
Interesting.
Yeah.
However,
Yep.
Every time I've taken the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, they've sadly disappointed me. And I am not drinking that Kool-Aid that you guys have out there in Bomberville with Owen Wilson. I am.
Whoa. Oh, no. Owen Wilson is Lightning McQueen. I think you mean Ontario Wilson.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Ka-chow!
Ontario Wilson. And I'm going to be made for yet making fun of another name and not getting it right. So, Mr. Wilson. I'm not drinking the Winnipeg.
Ka-chow, Rick. I don't know what you're drinking. Apparently, it's Rusty's.
Apparently, all that rain that we got in Ontario today is getting to me. But I am not on that Kool-Aid train that all you Winnipeg people are on. I am taking Saskatchewan to win this game.
What is this you with Kool-Aid?
Only because the other podcasts that I listen to, they always talk about the green Kool-Aid in Saskatchewan.
Oh.
And so I just thought, you know what?
There we go. It's all right. There's going to be a big game for Winnipeg, and if you're talking about the Kool-Aid man, we gotta break our way into we gotta break our way through Saskatchewan like the Kool-Aid man through the wall. Oh yeah, you know what I mean? Like the old commercials, like smashing through the wall. So I'm hoping for a big win out of my Bombers, but this is going to be a very, very close game. Now, that is going to be the game of the week I'm most excited for. I know what yours most excited for game this week is, which is the Toronto Argonauts against the Hamilton Tiger Cats over at Tim Hortons Field. Obviously, Hamilton coming off of a bye week. The question of this game for Hamilton, will their defensive coordinator still be a wanted man after this game has concluded? Rick, go nuts.
I mean, considering that when I went to practice on Monday, we had Jordan Murray and Brandon Kemp as practicing with the ones. I didn't go to practice today, so I didn't see if they're practicing with the ones. Also, Stavros is not on the injured list so far yet. So the injury that he received in Saturday's game or Sunday's game, whenever it was against BC, seems like so long ago, even though it was only 2 weeks ago. Hopefully he's better. But we are going to have the 300 Mitchell come back this week, as Bo Levi has thrown 300 yards for every game except for one, and that was the game against Calgary. But Bo Levi Mitchell will be throwing another 300 yards. Who? We don't know, whichever receiver decides to show up. But my real question is going to be, which version of Cameron Dukes does Toronto bring to Hamilton? Do they bring the one that got them the win against Montreal? Keep in mind they got a defensive touchdown, a special teams touchdown. Or do they bring the one that threw 4 interceptions against Saskatchewan?
You want to know my honest opinion?
What's your honest opinion?
You're gonna get the Montreal Cameron Dukes. I think it's one of those things where Toronto's coming off a big win against Montreal here, and obviously with Montreal, kind of the elephant in the room, Cody Fajardo getting injured and whatnot. But we shouldn't take it away too much, as there's still a ton of talent on that Alouettes team, and Toronto was able to get it done. Obviously, the defense was able to help. Obviously, the special teams was able to help. But it's one of those things where I think Cameron Dukes will play a good enough game in order to get it done. The biggest problem I see here is that Hamilton Ticats defense, despite all the talent that they have on paper, they haven't been able to put it together. And I need to see evidence of them putting it together in order for me to make those doubts kind of about Cameron Dukes, because Cameron Dukes has kind of been overall pretty good, but then had some games where he was a bit shaky. I haven't seen a good defensive game out of Hamilton yet.
But here's the other thing is, don't forget, I know Edmonton is 0-1. Week 3, Edmonton also put up 36 points on Toronto.
Yep.
So, and again, Toronto is one of, I don't know if I think they're up there with you guys, if I'm not mistaken, that has the most players on the injured reserve list.
It's true.
I think you guys are the top team out of the West. They're the top team in the East. And I just think that it will be interesting to see come Friday.
Yep.
We'll see
this
if
will be Saturday. Sorry. This will be Saturday.
Oh, yeah, Saturday. We'll see if Himothy actually makes a return and not just a one-hit wonder when he showed up 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
Whenever that exciting game was. James Butler, the running, receiving player that he was, he'll be there.
Yep.
And the possible East, I'm mentioning it now, this will be the East Rookie of the Year, Samar Bridges, the player that has come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's now 5th, or was 5th. He's probably 6th or 7th now in receiving yards. He'll be making a return now. It'll be interesting because this will be not including the preseason games. This will be Jamar Peters, Brandon Barlow, Knight, Hendricks. This is an all-return game against Toronto, as they all played for them last year in Toronto. So it'll be interesting to see if this is going to be the game. If this is the game that Hamilton turns it around, it would not surprise me, because we don't play Montreal back-to-back for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. If Hamilton wins this game, it will not surprise me if they beat Edmonton next week.
So here's the thing. Who are you taking?
Who am I picking? Obviously, I'm picking the hometown crowd because we
You're
have
picking the Ticats?
22 or 20 screaming Ticats beloved fans.
And
that will
unfortunately,
give
as
all
much
the
as I think
Argos.
it'd be nice for the Ticats in order to get this victory,
You're picking Toronto.
I don't see enough evidence yet. But it's one of those things where they're welcome to prove me wrong. I'm going to be taking the Toronto Argonauts this week against Hamilton. So it looks like we're having a little bit of some split games here, Rick. We already got two games where we've
hey, listen,
opposing.
I got to regroup. I got to regroup from me going 1-3 last week, so I got to turn around and hopefully I do better.
Well, or you might just be digging yourself deeper. Who knows? But I think we're tied right now, right? In our picks.
Our head-to-head, we are tied 14-10.
We are tied 14-10, both.
And I'm not letting you take the lead.
And now that will bring us into our Sunday game, though, which is going to be the BC Lions versus the Calgary Stampeders. Calgary coming off a loss to Winnipeg, a very, very close game, though, up until the bitter end. A 41-37 victory for Winnipeg. Very close game, though. Jake Maier threw 316 yards, went 20 for 31, so not the greatest completion percentage. Got 10.2 yards, on average. 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, so very kind of run-of-the-mill game here for Jake Maier in terms of certain aspects of his game as a quarterback, that was very good, and then some that just was not ideal. Dedrick Mills had himself quite a game with 9 yards receiving and 131 rushing, so 140 all-purpose yards for Dedrick Mills. Barnes and Jalen Philpott had good games, although weren't targeted very much. Jake Maier was very much not kind of really honing in on one receiver too much, was very much passing this around to whether that was Barnes or Philpott or Beggleton or Tucker or Brooks or Mitchell. He was kind of all over the place. And Rene Paredes was continuing to be absolute money for them. He was 3 for 3 last week. But then that kind of brings us over to the BC side of things. BC right now, I would say with the injury that has happened to Cody Fajardo, as well as Trevor Harris, it looks like BC very much is currently the best team in the CFL, and just being healthy is kind of one of the big things that has helped them. Vernon Adams Jr., 451 yards passing last week. He went 1 touchdown, 2 picks, was 26 for 42, so barely above 50%, so not ideal for Vernon Adams Jr., but you can't ignore 450 yards there. Justin McInnis, absolutely ridiculous. 14 receptions, 243, almost 250 yards last game. 1 touchdown, and Vernon Adams Jr. has done a good job when he does scramble outside that pocket and decides to run. Like Micah Alway had told us in the player interview that he did, Vernon Adams Jr., very, very slippery quarterback, good at evading tackles and getting those yards. We'll have to see if Micah Alway is able to maybe get a grab on him, get himself a sack going into this week. But who knows in that regard. So I'm going to let...
I honestly don't even think that this game is anywhere close.
And this is the thing, is that I think for as much as Calgary had a good game last week, I really, I don't know, man. BC looks very, very strong. Again, if we're looking at even when, I was talking about how Vernon Adams Jr., he got 450 yards, but wasn't able to get the best completions per attempts in terms of he went 26 for 42. You want something more than that. That's barely above 50%. But I mean, look what he did with just that 50%. He got 450 yards. He got himself a touchdown. McInnis was playing out of his mind. Think about it. 26 passes completed. 14 receptions for McInnis. He literally threw to McInnis over 50% of the time in terms of the actual for catches, the actual receptions. And so it's one of those things where he's shown how he's been able to be effective there. William Stanback was completely useless and ineffective last game, as he got 12 rushes and only got 14 yards. Wasn't able to do anything, but he didn't this is the thing about BC. They have so many different ways they can kill you. As the running game was non-existent. The passing game was, again, very good on yardage, just not the greatest on completions per attempts. They scored 35 points last game. 35. And it shows how their defense can be just as deadly. And again, there's so many different ways they can kill you. Lacombo, he was able to get a sack last game. One for Travai, one for Covington, one for Archibald. There was an interception for Green. Overall, this defense for BC has been strong. They were able to get a big win last week over Saskatchewan, holding them to only 20 points. I know, obviously, Trevor Harris is injured, but a good defensive game by BC last week. And as much as Calgary might be able to put up more points than Saskatchewan did last week, they might be able to put up more than 20. I don't see how Calgary wins this game. BC right now just looks like a bull in a china house. And right now, Calgary is the China house.
It would not even surprise me if they even had like 20. There's no way that they're getting. I would say even like 10 or 15.
So you think that BC nearly shuts out?
Oh, this is going to be a blowout.
Man, this is going to be something. McMahon Stadium, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern.
So
this is going to be something.
I was just going through some interesting facts while you're.
Yep.
While you're going through this, did you know we're now week 7, week 6, so far in 6 weeks, there's been across the league 76 touchdowns. How many interceptions across the league do you think that there's been in 6 weeks?
How many interceptions?
Yeah. Across all quarterbacks.
I feel like there's been more picks. I'm gonna say 80. I don't know.
43.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That should, because it feel. You know what it is. You know why I thought that? Because Zach Collaros has thrown so many picks and not many touchdowns. So I think that's what it is. Is that I'm getting a little skewed from my Bomber. Because if you show the Bomber stat line on that, I'm sure it's very different.
I mean, Zach has thrown 6.
Yeah.
Bo Levi, Bethel Thompson, Jake Mayer, Cameron Dukes, so those 4 have thrown 5. Cody Fajardo has thrown 4, and then Vernon Adams and Harris have thrown 3.
I see. Yeah, no, I guess I just thought because I know Collaros has thrown a lot and he hadn't thrown many touchdowns, that kind of skewed my perspective there a little bit. But
man. If there was 80 across the league in 6 weeks, oh my Lord.
I know, but it just felt like the ball was always getting turned over when we were on offense. So it is what it is. But overall, that's still a good amount of picks there. So a lot of good work defensively. I will say a lot of this year in the CFL, we have been very, very blessed by good kicking. As there have been some years prior where league-wide it seemed like no one could kick. This year, I think, is being very much the opposite, despite kind of the bad performance here and there.
So, now that you've brought that up, so there has been...
So, just to be clear, we're both picking BC, right?
Yes, just to be clear, we're both picking BC.
Yep.
So, out of the 9 kickers... And I mean 9 because Montreal has had 2 kickers.
Yep.
2 of them is 100% for field goals.
And who is that?
Sean White and Paredes.
And on how many?
So Sean White is 21 for 21. Paredes is 16 for 16.
Keep in mind as well, some of these, there's different lengths to kicks, so sometimes the kicks are...
Yeah, so, we're not...
BC's done a better job at getting their kicks from shorter distances, so that will be... obviously, Sean White's a great kicker. I'm just saying that's one reason, is because he's had a lot more shorter kicks. So
keep in mind, so these are just field goals.
Yep.
So then Sean White is 12 for 12. Rene Paredes is 16 for 16, 100% on field goals.
Yep.
9 of 10 on extra points. Lewis Ward is third, 17 for 18 for 94.4 in field goals. Missed 1 extra point. The kicker for Toronto I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. Larham.
Yep.
He went 14 for 15 for 93.3 yards or percent, sorry. And he's gone 10 for 12 in extra points. Mark Leggio has gone 11 for 12 for 91.7 for field goals and 11 for 11 in extra points. David Cote has gone 9 for 10 for 90%, and he's been 9 for 11. Then there is the king himself, Sergio Castillo. He's gone 17 for 20 for 85%.
Now, here's the thing.
Keep in mind,
two of those missed field goals are when we had the chip balls. So I would kind of discount those because, again, this was a situation where he completely changed his kicking after that and has been complete money ever since, only missing one kick since then. So I do think that is a little skewed. Another thing to keep in mind with Sergio Castillo, with his record here, is that the kicks that he has made significantly more longer kicks. As we were talking about 60, 57. He hit 53 twice in a single game. He hit 52. One of the ones that he missed was 54. Like, he's had some long kicks. And part of that is just because Winnipeg's offense just hasn't been able to push as much and get them deep down. So I do think there is context around Castillo's numbers. And that's not to take away from any of the other kickers. It's just I think that the numbers are a little deceiving on Castillo's end. So it's fair to mention.
So then Castillo went 10 for 11 on extra points. Mm-hmm. Then the actual next starter is Brett Lothar, who's gone 11 for 14.
Hold on a second.
70.
I'm just trying to remember what was Castillo's record on field goals?
17 for 20.
17 for 20. Okay, so in reality, that would be more like 17 for 18, just because we're gonna get rid of you know what I mean? Getting rid of those two. So just an updated percentage-wise, if you were basing that again with the ignoring those two because of the chip balls, which I think is absolutely a factor. This was a whole debacle when this happened. 94%. So just worthy of
okay, so he's up there.
Yep.
Yeah, so Brett Lothar is 11 for 14 for 78.6%.
Yep.
And he's made all of his extra, like the extra point converts. Boris Beatty is dead last in 5 for 7, 71.4%. And he is also 11 for 11. So it just goes to show of how kicking.
Again, league-wide, it's been very, very good. Although, I will say...
I mean, there's... A lot of games have been, like, when quarterbacks aren't scoring touchdowns, I've lost track of how many games where it's just like a kicking game.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Although, I think... So, overall, our goal of this video was to go over... the preview of this week's games. We got a little sidetracked at the end with all the fun kicking stats, but I think we pretty much got it. Is there anything else you got there, Rick? Or
yes. Don't forget to watch our Derek Parrish interview that we've done earlier today.
Yes. That's
earlier today. Yeah. Probably comes out after this tomorrow.
No. The interview will come out first. The interview will come out first, so it already has come out, so make sure you guys check that out.
Okay.
Leave a like on that. Leave a like on this video. Make sure you guys subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you did. I asked you at the start of the video. Click the little notification bell. If you're listening to this on Spotify, give us 5 stars. Really helps out. If you're someone who prefers kind of the Spotify sort of ordeal and you're watching this on YouTube, check us out on Spotify. I believe the link to that is in the description below, I believe. It should be. If not, just literally search Canadian Football Central on Spotify. You'll find us. And yeah, without further ado, peace, love, and positivity to you all. And we'll see you guys next time. Touchdown,